Hello there, welcome to the clinic. So if you're anything like me, your learning would best respond to the use of models or visuals when it comes to things like science, particularly biology, rather than just looking at pictures in a book or listening to some pretentious academic waffle on. So I've selected some organs that we may not have covered a lot in our science lessons, and hopefully you can learn a little bit and experience some lovely ASMR along the way. No better place to start than with the model of the human spine here. We often hear about people damaging their TH3, their lumbar section, cervical problem, slip discs, trapped nerves, things like that. Well, that is all associated with the spine. So just going along the spine, you can see it's colour coded into the various sections. We have some natural curvature, I believe, in 4 points. We have 1, 2, 3 and 4 there. Of course, the base of the skull, the pelvis, and of course the ball and socket joints there, where the femur bone continues. So let's have a look at the sections. So they're colour coded, as we said. We have a cervical section, thoracic, which is the biggest portion there, lumbar section, our sacrum, and of course at the bottom our tailbone, our coccyx there. Now, in terms of labelling the spine, we have our cervical section denoted as C, thoracic, TH, lumbar as L, sacrum as S, and the various numbers refer to the vertebrae. So there's one, and there's one, and so on. How do we number them? Well, from the top, we start at 1, 1, 1, and we go up 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So if someone has damaged their C7, say in a road traffic accident, they have damaged this vertebrae here, our C7. Thoracic is denoted by TH, and for example, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, TH7. Lumbar, L, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and our sacrum. 5 sections, but all fused together. Okay, so inside the vertebrae, of course, you have your spinal column, your nervous material, and between the vertebrae, you've all heard the term discs. There are our discs that provide protection between the vertebrae. So they try and prevent friction, they provide support, protection. There they are, you can see the discs between the vertebrae. So C, TH, L, S and C for coccyx. And of course you can see your nerve fibres here. that are going to be taking information from the peripherals and the organs to the spine, and then fibres going this way, so your afferent and efferent fibres. I'll show you the posterior part. So hopefully that has cleared up any grey areas when it comes to the human spine. Let's move on to another organ. And it certainly wouldn't be right of me doing something like this without looking at the eye, of course. Let me take you on a little bit of a 360 here. Not to scale, of course. It's a beautiful model of the human eye. So let's look at the various structures. So of course, we're starting with the window to the eye. That's the cornea. Okay, what should be clear optical surface. The hole in the centre, just posterior to the cornea, is the pupil. So essentially just a hollow space for allowing light through to the retina. The coloured part, of course, it varies from person to person in terms of colour. That is the iris. Now the iris has a couple of muscles that allow for dilation and constriction of the pupil, depending on factors such as light levels, or whether our sympathetic or parasympathetic nervous system is activated. The wide part is the sclera. And obviously that goes all around. The point where the cornea and the sclera meet is known as the limbus, and that looks slightly dark in appearance when you look at an eye on the slit lamp. The space inside the anterior chamber, just behind the cornea and in front of the iris, is known as your anterior angle, and that's where the majority of aqueous humour drains from the eye. Of course, attached to the sclera are various eye muscles that allow for elevation, depression, looking down, looking in, looking out, which is abduction, intorsion and extorsion. So we have our rotational movements. And this is my favourite part. We've taken a slice through the eye there, and we can actually see the three layers which are referred to as the tunics of the eye. So of course your outer sclera, your middle layer here is the vascular layer, that's the choroid, and of course your nervous layer, which does have some blood supply too, we have the retina there. So inner retina, middle choroidal, outer scleral, and of course going to the back you have your bundle of nerve fibres from the eye there, as the optic nerve, and that's going to go on a sort of pathway to the visual cortex, the back of the vein. So your optic nerve, your optic chiasm tract to the LGN, and then you have your optic radiations to the brain. Of course, veins denoted by the blue, arteries denoted by the red, so oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. Going through the centre, your central retinal artery supplying blood, central retinal vein draining blood. You have some vessels that actually pierce the back of the eye there, and you have some veins that actually come around and pierce the eye around the various peripheral areas. You can see them nicely when you perform ophthalmoscopy. Almost like a spider's web. They're known as the vortex veins. Now, I've purposely not opened up this model because we have a smaller model next that shows things more beautifully inside the eye. Okay, here we go. A smaller model eye, but it shows us inside the eye with some beautiful artistic work. I'm just going to take this one apart a little bit because it can be a little bit flimsy, to say the least. But we do have a view of the curved cornea there. Now, some of us with astigmatism may have a rugby ball shaped cornea rather than a spherical one. And I want to show you this part. So just behind the iris we all have a lens in the eye, or we should do. There we go, there's the crystalline lens. So this can flatten and it can thicken, especially in our younger years, to allow us to focus, accommodation. And of course the crystalline lens is prone to changes, age-related changes over time. We can develop cataracts, but I will come to that in a second. So it's not perfectly obvious here, but you have a portion here known as the ciliary body that makes the aqueous humour that travels through behind the iris, through the pupil and into the anterior chamber, as we described with the previous model, and drains at the angle, or at least the majority does. You have your lens zonules there, which holds the crystalline lens in place. And then of course your inner retina, your optic nerve there, and at one of the sides you have your macula. You can see some of the eye muscles attached to the sclera there. And of course there's your vortex veins, as we discussed previously. Now going back to the lens, the initial lens was a nice clear one. That's how a lens should be from birth, a clear crystalline lens. You can have congenital cataracts, for example, or you could have ocular trauma that compromises the lens. But let's have a look at some age-related cataract changes. see, this is a crystalline lens that has yellowed, that has developed a significant nuclear cataract. It gives off a murky yellowish colour, and I believe it will absorb lots of blue light, creating a little bit of xanthopsia for the patient. So have a little bit of yellow bias to their vision. That's quite a mature nuclear cataract there. We can develop nuclear cataracts that come from the periphery. That's quite a significant one there. They can often start as spokes, like on a bicycle wheel. I believe we have another type of cortical there. You can get combinations of cataracts. You can have nuclear and cortical combined. It's not uncommon. And you can also develop a third type of age-related cataract. So posterior subcapsular, which starts at the back of the crystalline lens and gets bigger. Now, if you have a cataract surgery performed, they will most likely, in all cases, remove the cataract, of course, and put in an artificial lens there to replace the power that you lose from cataract surgery. It could be made of silicone, it could be made of plastic. There is the crystalline, there is the intraocular lens, IOL. Okay, next a quick overview of the teeth. Obviously not a dentist, but we'll try and cover a little bit of what we know. So of course you have your upper row of teeth and your lower. You can see how the top slightly hangs or comes in front of the lower set there. I believe they're labelled 1 to 8, 1 to 8 upper and lower. Of course you have your gums here, which are prone to problems, gum disease, gingivitis, things like that. Right, so the most interesting thing about teeth for me is how they are designed in order to perform various functions. So you have your incisors at the front, help us to slice through our food. You have your canines, that allow us to pierce our food, so that's a good start. When the food is in our mouth, we have our premolars and our molars to mash the food. So, brilliant adaptation feature there of the teeth, allowing us to digest our food in its first instance. And of course you have salivary glands producing our first digestive enzyme, I believe it's amylase. So that's the human mouth and teeth there. Particular organ that we hear a lot about, but I think a lot of us don't really understand the various parts, is that of the foot and lower leg. So here is my model of the human foot. You'll just have to excuse the jelly toes there. Sorry about that if you're a bit squeamish. So you have your lower leg here. Of course there you have the bone protruding, you have your ankle, Achilles heel, or Achilles tendon. You've heard the story of Achilles, possibly. Now coming to the bottom of the foot, just like with our palm of the hand, we have a unique individual mapping index there, a unique footprint. So, we'll often hear the word heel, ball, arch. Let me try and help you there. So this part of the foot here is the ball of the foot there. You have your arch there. You can see, for obvious reasons, your arch. We've covered the ankle. And of course then we have the heel of the foot there. So heel, ball, ankle, Achilles tendon, and of course your toes here. The big toe, the long toe, the pinky there. And of course your unique prints there on the base.